Hello and welcome. Tonight, let's discover how ordinary people in medieval times not only survived but thrived during the most demanding season of their agricultural year, harvest time. As you settle into comfort and allow your mind to drift back through the centuries, imagine the golden fields of medieval Europe in late summer, where families worked together with remarkable ingenuity and resilience to gather the crops that would sustain them through the long winter months ahead. Illustration of a cozy autumnal medieval village with pumpkins and thatched houses representing harvest season and rural life. Picture yourself walking through a medieval village in late August, when the morning air carries the sweet scent of ripened grain and the gentle sounds of community preparation. This is not a tale of hardship, but rather a celebration of human resourcefulness, cooperation, and the quiet heroism of those who shaped our world through their determination and wisdom. As dawn breaks over the medieval countryside in late August, the first light reveals fields of golden wheat swaying gently in the morning breeze. The harvest season has arrived, and with it comes a time when entire communities transform into well-orchestrated teams of skilled workers, each person knowing their role in the ancient dance of gathering the year's bounty. The medieval farmers of Europe had developed over centuries a sophisticated understanding of timing that modern meteorologists would admire. They watched the sky with the keen eye of those whose very survival depended on reading nature's signals. When the wheat stalks turned from green to gold, when the grain heads grew heavy and began to bend toward the earth, when the morning dew took longer to evaporate from the fields, these were the signs that harvest time had truly begun. In villages across medieval Europe, the community operated on what we might call harvest time, a special rhythm that governed life from late July through September. Unlike our modern schedules, this was time measured not by clocks but by the natural cycles of growth and weather. Families would rise before dawn, not from any harsh necessity, but because the cooler morning hours offered the most comfortable working conditions and the best opportunity to cut grain before the day's heat made the work too strenuous. The beauty of medieval harvest lay in its communal nature. No family worked alone during this critical season. Villages had evolved sophisticated systems of mutual aid that ensured everyone's crops would be gathered safely, regardless of a family's size or circumstances. If illness struck a household, neighbors would seamlessly include that family's fields in their daily rounds. If tools broke, the village blacksmith worked through the night to repair them, knowing that harvest waited for no one. Children as young as 7 found meaningful ways to contribute, not through backbreaking labor, but through tasks perfectly suited to their abilities and size. They would walk the edges of fields, picking up dropped grain stalks, a job that required keen eyes and patience, qualities children possessed in abundance. The elderly members of the community served as watchful supervisors, sharing decades of accumulated wisdom about weather signs, grain quality, and the 100 small details that made the difference between a good harvest and a great one. Medieval farmers possessed an almost mystical ability to predict weather changes, a skill developed through generations of careful observation and passed down through families like precious heirlooms. These weather prophets of the countryside could sense approaching rain hours before the first clouds appeared, allowing communities to adjust their harvest schedules with remarkable precision. The key to their forecasting lay in understanding what we now call natural barometers. Long before meteorological instruments existed, these agricultural experts noticed that flowers suddenly smelled sweeter and stronger just before dry weather arrived. They observed that when the earth itself seemed to breathe deeply, releasing that distinctive rich scent we now associate with approaching rain. Heavy storms were typically 24 to 48 hours away. Animals served as willing weather assistants in this ancient system of prediction. Cows lying down in fields, cats washing their ears with unusual diligence, and bees refusing to venture far from their hives all signaled incoming precipitation. Medieval farmers learned to cross-reference these animal behaviors, treating them like a committee of natural consultants. When multiple animal indicators aligned, families could confidently plan their next day's activities, Sound, too, played a crucial role in their forecasting abilities. These experienced observers noticed that moisture in the air carried sounds differently. Voices from neighboring farms seemed unusually clear and crisp before rain, while sounds became oddly muffled and dampened when high-pressure systems brought dry weather. Some farmers could distinguish between the sound signatures of brief afternoon showers and day-long soaking rains. Wind direction provided another layer of meteorological intelligence. Eastern winds, particularly dreaded by farming communities, typically brought unstable weather patterns and could drop temperatures by 15 degrees in mere hours. Southern winds, on the other hand, gave families roughly 2 days' notice of approaching storms, enough time to complete urgent field work or secure harvested grain under shelter. Perhaps most remarkably, medieval farmers developed what they called generational weather memory. Elderly villagers would recall similar weather patterns from decades past, helping communities prepare for unusual seasonal variations. This collective meteorological wisdom, shared around evening hearths and during communal work periods, created a sophisticated early warning system that protected entire communities from weather-related losses. The relationship between medieval farmers and their tools transcended mere utility. These implements were treasured possessions, carefully maintained and passed down through generations like family heirlooms. Each tool represented not just function, but centuries of refinement and adaptation to the specific challenges of medieval agriculture. A person harvesting grain manually with a traditional wooden scythe, demonstrating the physical labor involved in medieval-style farming. The sickle, curved and gleaming when properly maintained, served as the primary instrument for harvesting grain crops. Unlike our modern perception of primitive tools, medieval sickles were marvels of practical engineering. Their curved design allowed workers to gather grain stalks in natural bundles while cutting them with a smooth, efficient motion. The serrated edges, carefully maintained by village blacksmiths, could slice through tough grain stems with surprising ease. Working with a sickle required skill and rhythm, rather than brute strength. Experienced harvesters developed an almost dance-like motion, bending and swinging in fluid movements that conserved energy while maximizing efficiency. The technique involved holding grain stalks in one hand while cutting with the other, creating neat bundles that could be easily collected and tied into sheaves. This method, refined over generations, allowed even smaller-statured workers to contribute effectively to the harvest. The scythe, with its longer handle and larger blade, represented a technological advancement that gradually transformed medieval harvesting. Initially used primarily for cutting hay and grass, the scythe eventually proved superior for grain harvesting as well. Its ergonomic design allowed workers to stand upright while cutting, reducing the back strain associated with sickle work. A skilled scythe user could clear significantly more grain per day than someone working with a sickle, though the tool required more expertise to use safely and effectively. Medieval farming communities took extraordinary care in maintaining their harvest tools. Village blacksmiths worked overtime during harvest season, ensuring that every blade stayed sharp and every handle remained secure. Families would spend winter evenings carefully oiling and storing their tools, understanding that these implements were their lifeline to survival. The distinctive sickle gloss that developed on blades after seasons of cutting silica-rich grain stems became a mark of pride, indicating a tool's proven effectiveness. Tool sharing represented another dimension of community cooperation during harvest. Wealthier families who owned multiple sites or specialized equipment would loan them to neighbors, understanding that a successful harvest for everyone meant greater security for the entire community. This system ensured that efficient tools circulated throughout the village, maximizing productivity while strengthening social bonds. Medieval farming communities possessed an intricate understanding of agricultural timing that rivaled modern precision farming techniques. Their success depended not on following rigid calendars, but on reading the subtle signs that nature provided to indicate optimal harvesting conditions. The concept of harvest readiness involved multiple indicators that farmers learned to read like a complex language. Grain heads that felt firm but not brittle when squeezed, stalks that had turned from green to golden yellow, and kernels that showed the proper moisture content when bitten. These were the signs that told experienced farmers their crops had reached peak condition. Different crops required different timing strategies within the harvest season. Wheat, being the most valuable grain, received priority attention and was typically harvested first when conditions were optimal. Barley and oats, being hardier and less prone to weather damage, could wait for later in the season. This staggered approach allowed communities to maximize their labor efficiency while ensuring that each crop was gathered at its peak quality. Weather windows became crucial strategic considerations. Medieval farmers learned to recognize the signs of approaching storms days in advance, allowing them to prioritize which fields needed immediate attention. A family might work longer hours for several days to clear a field before predicted rain, then rest during the storm while planning their next moves. The three-field rotation system that dominated medieval agriculture created a natural rhythm for harvest preparation. One field would be producing grain, another growing hay or legumes, and a third left fallow to regenerate. This system meant that farmers could focus their harvest energy on the productive fields while using fallow areas for temporary grain storage and community gathering spaces. Preparation extended beyond the fields themselves to include readying storage facilities, organizing community work groups, and ensuring that tools and equipment were in perfect condition. Barns and granaries received careful attention. Roofs were patched, floors were cleaned and dried, and natural pest deterrents like aromatic herbs were strategically placed to protect the coming harvest. Medieval villagers celebrate the harvest season with music, dancing, and traditional rituals in a lively festival. The medieval harvest season transformed villages into magnificent examples of human cooperation, where individual success became inseparable from community achievement. These agricultural communities had evolved sophisticated systems of mutual aid that ensured no family faced the demanding harvest season alone. The concept of love boons or communal work parties represented one of the most beautiful aspects of medieval harvest culture. When a family's crop was ready for harvesting, neighbors would arrive at dawn with their tools and their skills, working together to gather the grain efficiently and safely. These gatherings were not grim affairs of forced labor, but celebratory events where work and socializing blended into a satisfying whole. Leadership during harvest work often fell to the most experienced farmers, regardless of their social status in other contexts. A skilled peasant who could judge grain ripeness perfectly, or who possessed exceptional scything abilities, might find themselves directing the work of wealthier but less experienced neighbors. This temporary meritocracy created opportunities for knowledge sharing and skill development across the entire community. The role of women in harvest cooperation extended far beyond stereotypical domestic tasks. Women were skilled in the critical job of binding grain into sheaves, work that required speed, precision, and an eye for creating bundles that would dry properly without losing grain. Many women could match or exceed men in harvesting efficiency, particularly when working with sickles, where technique mattered more than physical strength. Children found their place in this cooperative system through age-appropriate tasks that nonetheless made meaningful contributions. They served as water carriers, keeping hardworking adults properly hydrated during long harvest days. They collected dropped grain stalks, ensuring that nothing valuable was wasted. They helped with simple food preparation, allowing adults to focus on the demanding work of cutting and gathering grain. The elderly members of the community provided invaluable services as coordinators and quality controllers. Their experienced eyes could spot grain that wasn't quite ready for cutting, preventing premature harvesting that would reduce the crop's nutritional value. They served as living libraries of harvest wisdom, sharing techniques and insights that had been refined over decades of seasonal experience. The actual process of cutting and gathering grain represented a refined art form that medieval farmers had perfected through centuries of practice. This work, far from being mindless drudgery, required skill, timing, and a deep understanding of how different grains behaved under various conditions. The harvesting day began in the pre-dawn hours, not from harsh necessity, but because experienced farmers understood that grain cut in the cool morning hours retained better quality and suffered less shattering loss. The grain stalks were stronger when cool, and workers could maintain their energy longer in comfortable temperatures. As the sun rose and the day warmed, the pace of work would naturally adjust to remain sustainable. Cutting grain with hand tools required technique that transformed potentially exhausting work into rhythmic, almost meditative activity. Skilled harvesters developed smooth, swinging motions that engaged their whole body, rather than just their arms and back. They learned to read the grain as they worked, adjusting their cutting height based on stalk strength and grain head fullness. The process of binding sheaves represented another specialized skill that required both speed and precision. Workers would gather cut grain into bundles of consistent size, large enough to be efficient but small enough to dry properly. The binding material, usually twisted straw from the grain itself, had to be secured tightly enough to hold the sheaf together during handling and storage, but not so tight as to prevent proper air circulation. Quality control during harvesting involved constantly assessing grain condition and adjusting techniques accordingly. If morning dew was heavy, workers might delay starting until the grain dried enough to prevent molding. If grain was particularly ripe and prone to shattering, they might modify their cutting technique to minimize losses. This adaptive approach maximized both quantity and quality of the harvested grain. The social aspect of harvest work created natural rhythms that helped maintain productivity while preventing exhaustion. Work songs, shared jokes, and communal problem-solving turned the demanding physical labor into an engaging group activity. Rest periods were naturally timed to coincide with necessary tasks, like tool sharpening or discussing progress, ensuring that breaks served multiple purposes. Medieval peasant kitchen with hearth fire, cooking pots, and fresh harvest produce prepared for meal and preservation. Medieval families approached food preservation with the precision and care of skilled craftspeople, understanding that their winter survival depended on mastering techniques that would keep their harvest safe and nutritious through the long, cold months ahead. Salting, the most fundamental preservation method, involved far more sophistication than simply covering food with salt. Medieval families learned to judge exactly how much salt different foods required, enough to prevent spoilage, but not so much as to make the food unpalatable. They developed techniques for dry salting meats and creating brine solutions for vegetables, each method carefully calibrated to the specific characteristics of different foods. The process of smoking foods represented both practical necessity and culinary art. Families constructed smoking chambers using specific types of wood that imparted favorable flavors while providing effective preservation. Apple wood, oak, and beech were prized for their smoking qualities, each contributing distinct flavors and preservation characteristics. The smoking process required careful temperature control. Too hot, and the food would cook rather than preserve. Too cool, and it wouldn't achieve proper preservation. Drying techniques varied ingeniously based on climate and available resources. Root vegetables were cleaned and stored in sand-filled containers in cool cellars, where they could remain fresh for months. Apples and pears were carefully arranged in straw-lined barrels, with each piece positioned to allow air circulation while preventing bruising. Beans and peas were dried on straw mats in sunny areas, then stored in sealed containers with aromatic herbs to deter insects. The creation of fermented foods represented medieval families' understanding of beneficial bacteria, long before the science was formally recognized. Cabbage transformed into sauerkraut through controlled fermentation, creating a food that was not only preserved but actually more nutritious than the original fresh vegetable. Dairy products were transformed into cheeses and cultured butter that could last through winter months. Storage facilities required careful attention to create optimal conditions for different preserved foods. Root cellars were excavated to specific depths to maintain consistent temperatures. Granaries were designed with proper ventilation to prevent moisture buildup while protecting against rodents. Each type of preserved food had its ideal storage conditions, and successful families became experts in managing multiple preservation environments simultaneously. Medieval farmers possessed weather prediction abilities that would impress modern meteorologists, skills developed through generations of careful observation and refined by the absolute necessity of protecting valuable crops from weather damage. The ability to read atmospheric pressure changes through natural indicators gave farming families crucial advantages in planning harvest activities. They noticed that certain birds flew lower before storms, that insects became more active in specific ways before weather changes, and that domestic animals exhibited distinctive behaviors that predicted weather patterns days in advance. Cloud formation patterns became a sophisticated language that experienced farmers could read with remarkable accuracy. Different cloud shapes, colors, and movements indicated not just whether rain was coming, but how much precipitation to expect and how long storms might last. This knowledge allowed families to plan work schedules that maximized productive time while avoiding weather-related losses. Wind patterns provided another layer of meteorological intelligence that helped farmers make critical timing decisions. The direction, intensity, and consistency of winds could indicate pressure system changes that would affect weather for days ahead. Farmers learned to recognize the subtle differences between winds that brought beneficial rains and those that brought damaging storms. The practice of weather watching became a community responsibility during harvest season. Different family members might specialize in different aspects of weather prediction. One person particularly skilled at reading animal behavior, another expert in interpreting cloud patterns. This collective knowledge created an early warning system that protected entire communities. Natural temperature indicators helped families optimize their daily work schedules. They learned to recognize the signs that indicated whether days would be suitable for cutting grain, binding sheaves, or moving harvested crops to storage. This understanding allowed them to match their activities to optimal conditions, improving both efficiency and crop quality. The transformation of harvested grain into bread represented one of the most crucial skills in medieval communities, a process that required technical expertise, timing, and deep understanding of fermentation and baking principles. Medieval bread making began with the careful selection and preparation of grains. Wheat flour produced the finest bread, but most families created nutritious loaves using combinations of wheat, barley, rye, and other available grains. The art lay in understanding how different grains behaved during fermentation and how to blend them for optimal nutrition, flavor, and keeping quality. The process of creating and maintaining sourdough starters required skill and attention that modern bakers would recognize and respect. These living cultures, passed down through generations of families, required daily care and feeding. The starters developed unique characteristics based on local wild yeasts and bacteria, creating distinctive flavors that identified bread from particular households or regions. Grinding grain into flour involved either family cornstones or community mills, each method requiring specific techniques to achieve proper texture and consistency. The quality of flour depended on factors like grain, moisture content, grinding speed, and sifting methods. Experienced bakers could judge flour quality by touch, smell, and appearance, adjusting their recipes accordingly. The actual bread-making process demanded precise timing and temperature control. Medieval bakers learned to judge dough readiness through tactile cues, the feel of properly developed gluten, the visual signs of adequate fermentation, the timing needed for optimal rising. They worked with wood-fired ovens that required skill to heat properly and maintain consistent temperatures throughout the baking process. Community baking systems developed to maximize efficiency while ensuring everyone had access to properly baked bread. Village ovens were often shared resources, with families taking turns using them according to established schedules. This system allowed families without their own ovens to still produce high-quality bread, while creating opportunities for knowledge sharing and community bonding. Medieval peasant family gathered around an open hearth inside a rustic home, preparing and preserving food during winter. The medieval family hearth served as far more than a simple cooking facility. It was the beating heart of domestic life, providing warmth, light, food preparation capabilities, and a gathering place that knit families together through the challenging harvest and winter seasons. The design of medieval hearths reflected centuries of refinement aimed at maximizing efficiency while ensuring safety. The central fire pit, surrounded by carefully arranged stones, provided excellent heat distribution while allowing for multiple cooking activities simultaneously. Families could prepare stews, bake bread, dry herbs, and heat water, all from the same fire source. Fuel management represented a crucial skill that required both practical knowledge and community cooperation. Families needed to balance different types of wood for various purposes: hardwoods like oak for long-burning heat, fruitwoods for flavoring foods during cooking, and softwoods for quick-starting fires. The collection and preparation of fuel became a year-round family activity, with different seasons providing different resources. The hearth area served as the center for food preparation activities that supported the family through the harvest and winter seasons. Here, vegetables were cleaned and prepared. Meat was processed and preserved, and the endless rounds of cooking that sustained working families were managed. The warmth and light of the fire made this area comfortable for detailed work even during long winter evenings. Heating strategies extended beyond the central hearth to include ingenious methods for distributing warmth throughout living spaces. Heated stones could be wrapped and placed in beds for nighttime warmth. Metal containers filled with coals provided portable heat sources that could be moved to different areas as needed. These techniques allowed families to stay comfortable even in poorly insulated medieval homes. The social aspect of hearth life created opportunities for family bonding and knowledge transfer that enriched daily life. Evening hours around the fire became natural times for storytelling, skill, teaching, planning, discussions, and the countless small interactions that built strong family relationships. Children learned essential life skills through observation and participation in hearth-centered activities. Medieval families supplemented their grain harvests with carefully tended gardens that provided fresh vegetables, herbs, and fruits that enhanced both nutrition and flavor throughout the year. Garden planning reflected sophisticated understanding of companion planting, seasonal timing, and soil management that would impress modern organic gardeners. Families learned which vegetables grew well together, how to stagger plantings for continuous harvests, and how to prepare soil using composted organic matter and natural fertilizers. Herb cultivation represented both culinary and medicinal knowledge that made medieval families remarkably self-sufficient in healthcare and food preparation. Gardens typically included parsley, sage, thyme, and rosemary for cooking, along with medicinal herbs like comfrey, yarrow, and calendula for treating common ailments. Each herb required specific growing conditions and harvesting techniques to maximize its beneficial properties. Vegetable varieties in medieval gardens were often hardier and more nutritionally dense than modern equivalents. Root vegetables like parsnips, turnips, and carrots could be stored in root cellars through winter. Leafy greens like kale and cabbage provided fresh vitamins during months when other vegetables weren't available. Legumes like peas and beans fixed nitrogen in the soil while providing protein-rich food. Fruit cultivation focused on varieties that could be preserved for winter consumption. Apple trees provided fruit that could be dried, stored fresh in straw-lined containers, or processed into cider. Other fruits were dried, made into preserves with honey, or fermented into alcoholic beverages that provided calories and nutrients during winter months. Garden maintenance created year-round activities that contributed to family food security while providing opportunities for skill development and family cooperation. Children learned plant identification, harvesting techniques, and preservation methods through hands-on participation in garden work. This knowledge became invaluable life skills that contributed to family survival and prosperity. The relationship between medieval farmers and their implements transcended simple utility, representing instead a partnership built on respect, maintenance, and deep understanding of each tool's capabilities and limitations. Tool craftsmanship in medieval communities reflected the high value placed on implements. That could mean the difference between successful harvests and failed crops. Village blacksmiths were highly skilled artisans who understood the specific requirements of different agricultural tools. They knew how to forge blades that would hold their edge, create handles that would absorb shock, and design implements that matched the physical capabilities of their users. The seasonal rhythm of tool maintenance became an essential part of agricultural life. Winter months provided opportunities for thorough cleaning, oiling, and repair of harvest implements. Families would inspect every tool carefully, identifying wear patterns that indicated needed repairs or adjustments. Wooden handles were sanded smooth and treated with oils to prevent cracking. Metal blades were sharpened and treated to prevent rust. Different tools required different maintenance approaches based on their specific functions and materials. Scythes needed particular attention to blade angle and sharpness to maintain their cutting efficiency. Sickles required careful attention to their serrated edges and curved shape. Plows needed inspection of all joints and wearing surfaces. Each tool represented a significant investment that families protected through careful maintenance. The practice of tool sharing within communities created networks of mutual support that strengthened village bonds while ensuring efficient use of valuable resources. Families who owned specialized tools often made them available to neighbors, understanding that community prosperity benefited everyone. This sharing system also facilitated knowledge transfer, as experienced tool users taught proper techniques to others. Tool innovation often came from users themselves, who modified implements to better suit their specific needs or working conditions. Handles might be adjusted for different sized users. Blades might be modified for particular soil conditions, or attachments might be created to improve efficiency. These grassroots innovations were shared throughout communities, leading to gradual improvements in agricultural technology. Medieval agricultural life moved to rhythms that modern people might find both foreign and deeply satisfying, where human activities aligned closely with natural cycles and seasonal changes. The agricultural calendar provided structure that organized community life around natural patterns of growth, harvest, rest, and renewal. Spring brought planting activities that required community cooperation and shared resources. Summer meant tending crops while preparing for the intensive work of harvest. Autumn focused on gathering and preserving the year's bounty. Winter provided time for tool maintenance, skill development, and community building. Seasonal work distribution created natural variety that prevented the monotony that can accompany repetitive labor. The physical demands and required skills changed with each season, allowing people to develop diverse capabilities while avoiding the strain of performing identical tasks year-round. This variety contributed to both physical health and mental engagement. The community calendar of festivals and celebrations marked important seasonal transitions while providing opportunities for rest, socializing, and cultural activities. Lammas celebrated the beginning of harvest, Michaelmas marked its completion, and various saints' days provided structure throughout the year. These celebrations weren't interruptions to work, but integral parts of the rhythm that sustained community life. Weather patterns became intimate partners in daily planning, with families developing deep sensitivity to atmospheric changes and natural cycles. This close relationship with weather created a kind of environmental wisdom that helped families make decisions that worked with rather than against natural forces. The integration of work and rest followed natural patterns that supported both productivity and well-being. Hard physical work during optimal conditions alternated with lighter activities during weather or seasonal periods that weren't suitable for intensive labor. This natural rhythm prevented burnout while maintaining high productivity when conditions were ideal. Medieval-style ceramic containers and bowls filled with apples and root vegetables demonstrate traditional food storage and preservation methods. Medieval families developed sophisticated storage systems that protected their harvest bounty through complex preservation, techniques that drew on empirical knowledge refined over generations. Underground storage facilities represented remarkable feats of practical engineering that maintained optimal conditions for different types of preserved foods. Root cellars were excavated to specific depths that provided stable temperatures, positioned to take advantage of natural drainage, and designed with proper ventilation systems. These facilities could maintain temperatures within narrow ranges that kept vegetables fresh for months. The creation of controlled atmosphere storage preceded modern techniques by centuries. Families learned to manage oxygen and moisture levels in storage areas, using techniques like layering vegetables with sand, straw, or other materials that absorbed excess moisture while preventing rapid spoilage. They understood intuitively how different storage conditions affected food quality and longevity. Grain storage required particular expertise to prevent losses from moisture, pests, and natural deterioration. Granaries were designed with features like raised floors to prevent ground moisture, proper ventilation to maintain air circulation, and pest control measures using natural deterrents. Families learned to monitor stored grain regularly, identifying and addressing problems before they caused significant losses. The integration of multiple preservation methods created food systems that provided security and variety throughout the year. A family might salt some meat, smoke other portions, and dry still others, creating a diverse food supply that offered different flavors and nutritional profiles. Root vegetables were stored fresh, while leafy greens were dried or fermented. This diversity protected against total food loss while providing meal variety. Quality control during storage involved regular monitoring and maintenance that prevented small problems from becoming major losses. Families developed routines for checking stored foods, rotating stock to use older items first, and making adjustments to storage conditions based on changing weather or seasonal conditions. This active management approach maximized food security while minimizing waste. The medieval harvest season transformed individual families into coordinated community teams where shared labor created both practical efficiency and deep social bonds that sustained villages through challenging times. Work organization during harvest reflected sophisticated understanding of human psychology and group dynamics that maximized productivity while maintaining social harmony. Tasks were distributed based on individual capabilities, preferences, and expertise rather than rigid social hierarchies. This flexible approach ensured that everyone could contribute meaningfully while developing their skills. The rotation of leadership responsibilities during different phases of harvest work created opportunities for various community members to develop and demonstrate organizational skills. Someone might lead grain cutting activities, while another person coordinated binding and stacking operations. This distributed leadership prevented any individual from becoming overwhelmed while building community capacity. Shared meals during harvest work periods served multiple functions beyond simple nutrition. These communal feedings provided opportunities for rest, socialization, and informal problem-solving discussions. Families took turns providing food for work groups, creating systems of reciprocal support that strengthened community bonds while ensuring everyone stayed well-nourished during demanding physical labor. The integration of celebration with work transformed potentially exhausting labor into festive community events. Harvest work was accompanied by singing, storytelling, and friendly competitions that maintained morale and energy levels. These social elements made the demanding work of harvest something that people looked forward to, rather than dreaded. Knowledge transferred during shared labor created informal educational systems, where skills and techniques were passed between generations and shared among community members. Experienced workers naturally taught others through demonstration and explanation, while newcomers brought fresh perspectives and energy. This continuous learning process improved overall community capability while preserving traditional knowledge. Medieval communities transformed their grain harvests into nourishing beverages. Through brewing processes that provided both nutrition and safe drinking alternatives to potentially contaminated water sources, the art of brewing began with careful grain selection and preparation that required understanding of how different grains contributed to flavor, nutrition, and keeping quality. Barley was the preferred brewing grain, but communities also used wheat, oats, and other available grains to create diverse beverages suited to different preferences and nutritional needs. Malting processes required precise timing and temperature control that demonstrated medieval families' sophisticated understanding of grain biochemistry. Grain was soaked, allowed to sprout under controlled conditions, then dried to halt the sprouting process. This malting converted grain starches into fermentable sugars, while developing flavors and nutritional compounds that enhanced the final beverage. The fermentation process relied on wild yeasts and carefully maintained starter cultures that created consistent, flavorful results. Families developed brewing techniques that matched their local climate conditions and available ingredients. The alcohol produced during fermentation served as a natural preservative that allowed beverages to remain safe and nutritious for extended periods. Brewing schedules were coordinated with harvest activities to make optimal use of fresh grain while providing beverages that would support families through winter months. The timing of different brewing activities required planning that balanced immediate consumption needs with long-term storage requirements. This planning created year-round beverage supplies that provided both nutrition and enjoyment. The social aspect of brewing created opportunities for knowledge sharing and community bonding that enriched medieval life. Brewing techniques were shared among families, with successful brewers teaching others their methods. Community brewing activities provided gathering opportunities that strengthened village relationships while producing essential beverages. Medieval families cultivated extensive knowledge of herbal remedies that provided healthcare solutions drawn from plants grown in their own gardens and gathered from surrounding countryside. The cultivation of medicinal herbs required understanding of specific growing conditions, harvesting timing, and preparation methods that maximized therapeutic properties. Families learned which herbs thrived in different soil types, when to harvest them for peak potency, and how to dry and store them to maintain their healing qualities. Common herbs like sage, thyme, and rosemary served dual purposes as both culinary seasonings and medicinal remedies. Sage was used for digestive issues and to whiten teeth, while thyme provided antiseptic properties for treating wounds. This integration of food and medicine created practical healthcare systems that families could manage with readily available resources. The preparation of herbal remedies involved techniques that ranged from simple teas to complex combinations of multiple plants. Families learned to create poultices for external applications, tinctures for internal use, and aromatic preparations for respiratory ailments. Each preparation method was suited to specific conditions and required particular skills and knowledge. Seasonal gathering of wild medicinal plants expanded the healthcare resources available to medieval families. Plants like elderberries, rose hips, and various forest herbs were collected at optimal times and processed for winter use. This wild harvesting required extensive botanical knowledge and understanding of sustainable collection practices. The transmission of herbal knowledge through generations created informal healthcare systems that served medieval communities effectively. Elder family members taught younger ones to identify plants, understand their properties, and prepare effective remedies. This knowledge transfer ensured that essential healthcare capabilities remained available within families and communities. Medieval homes were designed with remarkable efficiency to maximize warmth, storage, and functionality using available materials and traditional building techniques that had been refined over centuries. The positioning and orientation of medieval houses reflected deep understanding of local climate patterns and seasonal changes. Homes were often built with thick walls that provided thermal mass, positioned to take advantage of winter sun while offering summer shade. Doorways faced away from prevailing winds, while windows were placed to maximize natural light during working hours. Roof construction using thatch tiles or other available materials created effective insulation systems that regulated indoor temperatures while shedding rain and snow effectively. The steep angles of many medieval roofs facilitated drainage while providing space for food storage and other activities in upper areas. Some families even grazed goats on living roofs that helped insulate their homes. The integration of living spaces with storage areas created efficient use of limited space while providing protection for valuable supplies. Root cellars connected directly to main living areas, allowing families to access stored food without exposing it to temperature fluctuations. Grain storage areas were positioned where they could be monitored isolated, while remaining secure from pests. Heating systems centered around carefully designed hearths that maximized heat output while minimizing fuel consumption. Chimney systems, where they existed, were positioned to draw smoke effectively while maintaining indoor warmth. Portable heating devices allowed families to move warmth to different areas as needed. The shared living arrangements with livestock that characterized many medieval homes served practical purposes beyond simple space economy. Animals provided additional warmth while remaining accessible for care and milking. This integration of human and animal living spaces reflected pragmatic approaches to winter survival that maximized available resources. Daily meal patterns in medieval farming families followed rhythms that supported intensive physical labor while making optimal use of available ingredients and cooking facilities. Breakfast, when consumed, typically consisted of simple, icily prepared foods that provided energy for morning work activities. Bread, often dialed and moistened with ale or broth, provided carbohydrates, while cheese or preserved meat added protein. These meals were designed for quick consumption before heading to fields or other work areas. The main meal of the day, typically consumed between 10 in the morning and noon, represented the primary opportunity for substantial nutrition and family gathering. These meals often centered around pottage, a versatile stew that could incorporate whatever ingredients were available, while providing balanced nutrition. The communal preparation and consumption of this meal created opportunities for family interaction and planning. Evening meals were often lighter affairs that used ingredients prepared earlier in the day. Bread, cheese, vegetables, and beverages provided satisfying nutrition without requiring extensive cooking activities. These meals allowed families to wind down from the day's work while enjoying time together around the hearth. Seasonal variations in available ingredients created natural dietary diversity that provided different nutritional profiles throughout the year. Spring brought fresh herbs and early vegetables. Summer offered a wider variety of fresh foods, autumn provided harvest bounty, and winter relied more heavily on preserved foods. This seasonal eating pattern ensured nutritional variety while connecting families closely to natural cycles. Food preparation activities involved entire families working together to create meals that sustained their physically demanding lives. Children learned cooking skills through participation, while adults shared techniques and recipes that had been developed over generations. These shared activities created opportunities for bonding while ensuring that essential skills were transmitted to younger generations. A lively medieval village harvest festival, showcasing communal celebration and traditional rural life. Medieval communities marked the progression of seasons through festivals and observances that provided structure, meaning, and celebration throughout the agricultural year. The celebration of La Messe on August 1st marked the beginning of harvest season with ceremonies that blessed the first fruits and gave thanks for the year's growing success. Communities gathered to share the first bread made from new wheat, creating bonds of gratitude and mutual support that carried through the demanding harvest work ahead. Michaelmas, celebrated on September 29th, provided closure to the harvest season while marking the transition toward winter preparation activities. This celebration included feasting, games, and community gatherings that strengthened social bonds while acknowledging the completion of successful harvest work. The timing allowed communities to rest and celebrate before beginning winter preparation activities. Seasonal festivals created opportunities for communities to gather, share resources, and strengthen relationships that sustained them through challenging times. These celebrations included music, dancing, storytelling, and shared meals that enriched community life while providing relief from the demands of agricultural labor. The religious significance of seasonal observances provided meaning and context that helped families understand their work as part of larger spiritual and natural cycles. Saints' days and religious festivals offered guidance for timing agricultural activities, while creating opportunities for reflection and spiritual renewal. Community participation in seasonal festivals created shared experiences that built lasting relationships and cultural traditions. These celebrations brought together people of different ages, social positions, and family backgrounds, creating inclusive community experiences that strengthened village bonds while preserving cultural knowledge and practices. As harvest season drew to a close, medieval families shifted their attention to preparing for winter months with systematic approaches that ensured comfort and security through the coldest season. Food storage preparations required careful attention to quantities, quality, and distribution of preserved foods throughout storage facilities. Families calculated their winter needs based on family size, expected weather severity, and available storage space. This planning ensured adequate nutrition while preventing waste of valuable resources. Firewood collection and preparation became major activities that required community cooperation and careful resource management. Different types of wood were gathered for different purposes: hardwoods for long-burning heat, kindling for quick fire starting, and specialty woods for particular cooking or craft activities. The collection and preparation of winter fuel often involved entire communities working together. Clothing preparation for winter involved repairing, replacing, and creating warm garments that would protect families through cold weather. This work included activities like spinning wool, weaving fabric, sewing garments, and preparing warm accessories like mittens and scarves. Much of this work took place during winter evenings around the hearth. Home winterization activities prepared living spaces for cold weather through repairs, improvements, and adjustments that maximized warmth and comfort. Families checked and repaired roofs, sealed gaps around doors and windows, and prepared heating areas for efficient operation. These preparations created comfortable living environments despite limited heating resources. The social preparation for winter involves strengthening community relationships and support systems that would sustain families through isolated winter months. Families made arrangements for sharing resources, checking on elderly or vulnerable community members, and maintaining contact during severe weather. These social preparations created networks of mutual support that enhanced everyone's winter security. Winter evenings around medieval hearths became opportunities for family bonding, skill development, and cultural transmission that enriched family life while making productive use of indoor time. Craft activities during winter evenings allowed families to create useful items, while developing manual skills and artistic abilities. Activities like carving, weaving, sewing, and tool-making provided productive occupations that resulted in useful items while offering opportunities for creativity and skill development. Storytelling traditions flourished during long winter evenings, with elder family members sharing tales that entertained while transmitting cultural knowledge and values. These stories included folk tales, family histories, moral lessons, and practical knowledge that connected younger generations to their heritage while providing entertainment. Skill teaching during winter evenings created informal educational systems where family members learned capabilities that would serve them throughout their lives. Children learned reading, writing, arithmetic, and practical skills through one-on-one instruction that was tailored to their interests and abilities. Social visiting between families created community connections that sustained villages through winter isolation. Families took turns hosting gatherings that included meals, games, conversations, and shared activities. These social interactions strengthened community bonds while providing relief from the potential monotony of winter confinement. The planning activities that took place during winter evenings prepared families for the coming years. Agricultural and household activities. Families discussed crop selection, reviewed the previous year's successes and challenges, and made plans that would guide their activities through the next seasonal cycle. Medieval families mastered resource management techniques that maximized the value of limited materials while minimizing waste through careful planning and creative repurposing. The practice of making do became a highly developed skill that allowed families to extend the useful life of tools, clothing, and household items through repairs, modifications, and creative repurposing. Items that could no longer serve their original function were transformed into useful objects for different purposes. Sharing systems within communities created efficient use of resources that were expensive or infrequently needed. Families might share specialized tools, animals for draft work, or processing facilities like mills and ovens. These sharing arrangements reduced individual ownership costs while ensuring that everyone had access to necessary resources. The careful management of consumable resources like food, fuel, and materials required planning skills that balanced current needs with future requirements. Families developed budgeting systems that allocated resources throughout winter months, while maintaining reserves for emergencies or unexpected needs. Seasonal resource allocation patterns matched consumption with availability to maximize efficiency, while minimizing waste. Families learned to use abundant seasonal resources when available, while conserving scarce materials for times when they would be most needed. This approach created sustainable resource use patterns that supported long-term family security. The development of resource conservation habits created efficiency patterns that became second nature to medieval families. Practices like saving cooking fats for soap making, composting organic waste for garden use, and repairing rather than replacing items became integral parts of daily life that maximized resource value. Medieval villages operated on principles of mutual aid that created support systems ensuring no family faced crises alone, fostering resilience and cooperation that sustained communities through challenging times. The practice of community barn raising exemplified how villages came together to complete major projects that exceeded individual family capabilities. When families needed new structures, the entire community contributed labor, materials, and expertise to complete construction quickly and effectively. These events combine necessary work with social celebration, creating positive community experiences while accomplishing essential tasks. Emergency support systems activated automatically when families faced crises like illness, injury, or natural disasters. Community members would seamlessly assume responsibility for maintaining affected families. Essential activities, tending animals, preparing meals, caring for children, or managing other necessary tasks. This support continued until families could resume normal activities. Resource sharing during difficult times created community resilience that protected all families from the effects of individual misfortunes. When crop failures affected some families but not others, successful families shared their surplus to ensure everyone had adequate food. This sharing was understood as community investment that would be reciprocated when circumstances required. The rotation of community responsibilities ensured that burden Sharing remained equitable while developing leadership capabilities throughout the village. Families took turns organizing community activities, maintaining shared resources, and providing various services that benefited everyone. This rotation prevented any family from bearing disproportionate responsibility while building community capacity. Knowledge sharing within communities created informal educational systems that preserved and transmitted essential skills across generations and between families. Experienced individuals taught others their specialized knowledge, whether in crafts, agriculture, healing, or other areas. This knowledge sharing strengthened overall community capability while preserving valuable traditional wisdom. Daily life in medieval farming families followed natural rhythms that balanced work, rest, and social activities in patterns that supported both productivity and well-being. Morning activities began with tasks that took advantage of cool temperatures and fresh energy while preparing for the day's main work activities. Families would tend animals, prepare meals, organize tools and equipment, and plan the day's activities. These morning routines created smooth transitions into more demanding work while ensuring essential tasks were completed. Work periods were naturally paced according to weather conditions, seasonal requirements, and human energy cycles. Intensive physical labor was scheduled during optimal conditions, while lighter activities filled periods when weather or other factors made heavy work inadvisable. This flexible scheduling maximized productivity while preventing exhaustion. Rest periods during the day were timed to coincide with natural breaks in workflow or changes in weather conditions. These breaks provided opportunities for meals, equipment maintenance, planning discussions, and brief rest that sustained energy throughout long working days. The integration of rest with other necessary activities made efficient use of time. Evening activities focused on completing daily tasks, preparing for the following day, and engaging in family and community social activities. These evening hours provided opportunities for skill development, cultural activities, and family bonding that enriched life while making productive use of indoor time after outdoor work was completed. The weekly rhythm provided variation that prevented monotony while ensuring that all necessary activities received adequate attention. Different days might focus on different types of work, allowing families to maintain diverse activities while preventing the strain of repetitive labor patterns. Medieval villages functioned as integrated communities, where individual families were woven together through economic, social, and cultural relationships that created resilient and supportive living environments. The economic interdependence between village families created systems of mutual benefit that strengthened overall community prosperity. Families specialized in different activities, some focusing on grain production, others on animal husbandry, crafts, or services. This specialization created trade relationships that improved everyone's standard of living while building community connections. Social hierarchies in villages were balanced by practical cooperation that transcended formal status differences. During harvest or emergency situations, everyone contributed according to their abilities regardless of their usual social position. This practical egalitarianism created strong community bonds while ensuring that essential work was accomplished effectively. Cultural activities throughout the year created shared experiences that built community identity and preserved traditional knowledge. Festivals, celebrations, storytelling sessions, and other cultural events brought villagers together while transmitting values, skills, and knowledge that sustained community life. The integration of different age groups within village activities created natural mentorship systems where skills and knowledge passed between generations. Children learned through observation and participation in adult activities, while elders shared their accumulated wisdom through teaching and guidance. This intergenerational cooperation preserved community knowledge while developing individual capabilities. Community decision-making processes involved various village members in planning and problem-solving activities that affected everyone. These collaborative approaches to community issues built consensus, while ensuring that different perspectives and interests were considered. The resulting decisions had broad support, because everyone had opportunities to contribute to their development. Medieval farmers developed sophisticated understanding of soil management and seed selection that maximized crop yields while maintaining long-term soil health through techniques that modern organic farmers would recognize and respect. The three-field rotation system represented advanced agricultural science that balanced soil nutrients while providing diverse crop production throughout the agricultural cycle. Fields alternated between grain production, legume cultivation that fixed nitrogen, and fallow periods that allowed soil regeneration. This system maintained soil fertility while maximizing productive use of available land. Soil preparation techniques included careful attention to timing, weather conditions, and soil condition that optimized planting success. Farmers learned to recognize ideal soil moisture and temperature conditions for different activities, timing their work to take advantage of optimal conditions while avoiding periods when work might damage soil structure. Seed selection and saving practices preserved the best genetic characteristics, while adapting crops to local growing conditions. Families carefully selected seeds from plants that had performed well under local conditions, gradually developing crop varieties that were well suited to their specific environment and needs. Natural fertilization methods, using composted organic matter, animal manure, and other available materials enriched soil while improving its structure and water-holding capacity. Families developed systematic approaches to creating and applying organic amendments that sustained soil health while providing nutrients for crop growth. The integration of animal husbandry with crop production created complementary systems where animal waste provided fertilizer for crops, while crop residues and pastures provided animal feed. This integration maximized resource use efficiency while creating sustainable agricultural systems that supported both plant and animal production. Medieval kitchen scene showing communal food preparation and preservation among peasants, illustrating the labor-intensive nature of household work during harvest season. Medieval farming families developed close relationships with their animals that went beyond simple utility to create partnerships that enhanced both human and animal well-being. Animal husbandry practices reflected understanding of animal behavior, nutritional needs, and health requirements that ensured productive and humane animal care. Families learned to recognize signs of animal illness, understand feeding requirements, and provide housing that kept animals comfortable and healthy throughout the year. The integration of animals into daily family life created shared living arrangements that benefited both humans and animals during winter months. Animals provided additional warmth while remaining accessible for care, milking, and monitoring. This close proximity allowed families to respond quickly to animal needs while maximizing available shelter space. Breeding programs maintained animal quality while adapting herds to local conditions and family needs. Families selected breeding animals based on characteristics like productivity, hardiness, temperament, and adaptation to local climate and feed conditions. This selective breeding gradually improved animal performance while maintaining genetic diversity. The emotional bonds between families and their animals created relationships that enriched daily life while motivating excellent animal care. Children often developed particular attachments to specific animals, learning responsibility and empathy through animal care activities. These relationships made animal husbandry more rewarding while ensuring conscientious care. Working partnerships between humans and animals created efficient systems for accomplishing agricultural tasks. Oxen and horses provided draft power for plowing and transportation, while their human partners provided guidance and care. These working relationships required mutual understanding and respect that developed over years of cooperation. Medieval farming communities preserved and transmitted agricultural knowledge through informal educational systems that ensured essential skills and wisdom passed successfully between generations. The apprenticeship tradition created structured learning opportunities where young people acquired specialized skills through hands-on experience, under expert guidance. These apprenticeships covered various areas, including farming techniques, craft skills, animal husbandry, and household management. The close mentor-student relationships ensured high-quality knowledge transfer while providing young people with valuable career preparation. Oral tradition preserved and shared knowledge that couldn't be recorded in written form, including detailed observations about local conditions, weather patterns, soil characteristics, and plant behavior. This oral knowledge was shared through storytelling, work songs, and casual conversation during shared activities. The repetitive sharing of this knowledge ensured its preservation while making it easily accessible. Community memory systems preserved information about past events that provided guidance for dealing with similar situations in the future. Elderly community members served as living libraries who could recall previous instances of unusual weather, crop failures, disease outbreaks, or other challenges, along with the solutions that had proven effective. This institutional memory helped communities respond effectively to recurring problems. Practical demonstration remained the primary method for teaching complex skills that required hands-on experience to master. Agricultural techniques, craft methods, and household skills were learned through observation, practice, and gradual assumption of responsibility under supervision. This experiential learning created deep understanding while building confidence and competence. The integration of knowledge sharing into daily activities created natural learning opportunities that didn't require separate educational institutions. Children learned essential skills through participation in family work, while adults shared knowledge during community activities. This integration made education a natural part of daily life, while ensuring that all community members acquired necessary capabilities. Medieval agricultural practices varied significantly across different regions of Europe, with local communities adapting their techniques to match specific climate conditions, soil types, and available resources. Northern European farming communities developed techniques specifically suited to shorter growing seasons, cooler temperatures, and different precipitation patterns. These adaptations included crop varieties that matured quickly, soil preparation methods that maximized warmth retention, and storage techniques that protected crops through longer winter periods. Mediterranean agricultural regions focused on crops and techniques that thrived in warmer, drier conditions with different seasonal patterns. These areas developed sophisticated irrigation systems, drought-resistant crop varieties, and preservation methods that took advantage of abundant sunshine for drying and storing food. Regional specialization in particular crops or products created trade relationships that benefited all communities while encouraging excellence in specific agricultural areas. Some regions became known for particular grains, others for livestock, and still others for specialized products like wine or wool. This specialization created economic relationships that connected distant communities. Local environmental conditions shaped the development of region-specific knowledge that was carefully preserved and transmitted within communities. This local knowledge included understanding of microclimates, soil variations, plant adaptations, and weather patterns that were specific to particular areas. This specialized knowledge gave communities advantages in managing their specific agricultural challenges. The adaptation of general agricultural principles to local conditions created diverse approaches to similar challenges, while preserving underlying wisdom. Communities modified standard practices to match their resources and conditions while maintaining the fundamental understanding that made agriculture successful. This adaptation created rich diversity in agricultural approaches while preserving core knowledge. Medieval communities punctuated their agricultural year with celebrations that marked important seasonal transitions while strengthening social bonds and providing opportunities for rest and enjoyment. Harvest festivals represented the culmination of the year's agricultural work, providing communities with opportunities to celebrate their success while sharing the fruits of their labor. These celebrations included feasting, music, dancing, and games that allowed everyone to enjoy the results of their hard work while building positive associations with agricultural activities. The seasonal progression of festivals created year-round structure that gave communities regular opportunities to gather, celebrate, and strengthen relationships. Spring festivals marked new beginnings. Summer celebrations acknowledged growing abundance. Autumn festivals gave thanks for harvest success, and winter observances provided hope and community connection during challenging months. Religious observances integrated spiritual meaning with seasonal activities, helping communities understand their agricultural work as part of larger spiritual and natural cycles. These observances provided guidance for timing activities while creating opportunities for reflection, gratitude, and spiritual renewal that enriched community life. Community participation in festivals created inclusive experiences that brought together people of different ages, social positions, and backgrounds. These celebrations provided opportunities for everyone to contribute their talents while enjoying shared experiences that built lasting relationships and positive community memories. The preservation of cultural traditions through festivals ensured that important knowledge, values, and practices were transmitted between generations while adapting to changing circumstances. These celebrations served as vehicles for cultural continuity while providing opportunities for innovation and creative expression that kept traditions vibrant and relevant. Medieval farming communities demonstrated remarkable ability to adapt their practices and develop innovations that improved their agricultural success while maintaining connection to traditional wisdom. The development of improved tools and techniques often emerged from practical experience and community experimentation rather than formal research. Farmers who discovered more effective methods shared their innovations with neighbors, leading to gradual improvements in agricultural efficiency and effectiveness. These grassroots innovations created continuous refinement of agricultural practices. Environmental adaptation allowed communities to successfully farm in challenging conditions by developing techniques specifically suited to their local circumstances. These adaptations included modified planting schedules, specialized crop varieties, adjusted soil preparation methods, and innovative storage techniques that maximized success under specific local conditions. Resource utilization innovations helped communities make better use of available materials while reducing waste and improving efficiency. These innovations included new methods for processing crops, improved preservation techniques, more effective tool designs, and creative approaches to common agricultural challenges. Knowledge integration combined traditional wisdom with practical experience to create agricultural approaches that were both proven and progressive. Communities preserved valuable traditional knowledge while remaining open to improvements and adaptations that enhanced their agricultural success. The balance between innovation and tradition ensured that communities could adapt to changing conditions while maintaining the stability and reliability that agricultural life required. This balance created agricultural systems that were both resilient and progressive, capable of evolution while preserving essential knowledge and practices. Medieval farming communities participated in trade networks that connected them to broader regional and international economies, while maintaining their agricultural focus and community identity. Local markets provided opportunities for families to exchange surplus agricultural products for goods and services they couldn't produce themselves. These markets created economic relationships that benefited both agricultural and craft-producing families, while providing social opportunities that strengthened community connections. Regional trade relationships connected communities with different agricultural specializations, allowing areas that excelled in grain production to trade with regions known for livestock, crafts, or other products. These trade relationships created economic diversity while encouraging communities to develop excellence in their particular strengths. The integration of agricultural production with market activities required planning and decision-making skills that balanced family subsistence needs with commercial opportunities. Families learned to calculate optimal quantities of different crops for home use versus market sale, timing their sales to take advantage of favorable prices while ensuring adequate family supplies. Trade relationships created cultural exchange opportunities that enriched community life while providing access to new ideas, techniques, and products. Merchants and traders brought information about practices from other regions, contributing to the gradual spread of agricultural innovations and cultural knowledge. The development of commercial agriculture alongside subsistence farming created economic opportunities that improved family security while maintaining connection to traditional agricultural practices. This integration provided additional income sources while preserving the agricultural knowledge and community relationships that sustained rural life. Medieval communities developed physical infrastructure that supported their agricultural activities while creating efficient and sustainable systems for processing, storing, and distributing agricultural products. Mill systems for processing grain represented sophisticated engineering that made efficient use of available water or wind power while serving entire communities. These facilities required community cooperation to build and maintain, while providing essential services that improved everyone's quality of life. The communal nature of mills created natural gathering places that strengthened community relationships. Storage facilities, including granaries, root cellars, and specialized preservation buildings, created infrastructure that protected agricultural products while making them accessible for use throughout the year. These facilities required careful design and construction that took advantage of natural conditions while protecting valuable food supplies from weather, pests, and spoilage. Transportation infrastructure, including roads, bridges, and market facilities, supported the movement of agricultural products while connecting communities to broader trade networks. This infrastructure required community cooperation to build and maintain, while providing benefits that improved everyone's economic opportunities. Community facilities, including ovens, brewing areas, and processing spaces, created shared resources that improved efficiency while fostering cooperation and knowledge sharing. These facilities allowed communities to accomplish tasks that would have been difficult for individual families while creating opportunities for social interaction and skill development. The integration of agricultural infrastructure with community planning created efficient systems that supported both agricultural production and community life. This integration maximized resource use while creating physical environments that encouraged cooperation and mutual support. Medieval farmers developed precise understanding of seasonal timing that optimized their agricultural activities while minimizing weather-related risks through careful observation and flexible planning. Planting schedules balanced soil temperature, moisture conditions, and seasonal weather patterns to maximize germination success while ensuring adequate growing time before harvest. Farmers learned to recognize optimal soil conditions for different crops while adjusting their timing. Based on current weather patterns and long-term seasonal forecasts, harvesting timing required precise judgment that balanced crop maturity with weather risks to ensure maximum yield and quality. Farmers monitored crop development carefully while staying alert to weather changes that might require adjustments to their harvesting schedule. This careful timing maximized both quantity and quality of harvested crops. Processing and preservation activities were timed to take advantage of optimal conditions while ensuring that perishable products were handled efficiently. Families coordinated their food processing activities with weather conditions and available labor to maximize preservation success while minimizing losses. Seasonal preparation activities were scheduled to ensure that necessary supplies, equipment, and facilities were ready when needed. This preparation included tool maintenance, storage facility preparation, and resource gathering that needed to be completed before seasonal peaks in activity. Weather monitoring and prediction allowed communities to adjust their timing based on current conditions, while maintaining flexibility in their seasonal planning. This adaptive approach helped families optimize their activities while reducing weather-related risks that could affect their agricultural success. The agricultural knowledge developed by medieval farming communities represented accumulated wisdom that had been refined through generations of practical experience and careful observation. Traditional farming techniques embodied understanding of natural processes that had been developed through centuries of agricultural practice. These techniques included soil preparation methods, planting practices, crop selection approaches, and harvesting techniques that had proven effective under various conditions while maintaining long-term sustainability. Environmental knowledge preserved detailed understanding of local conditions including climate patterns, soil characteristics, plant behavior, and animal ecology that guided agricultural decisions. This knowledge was carefully preserved and transmitted through informal educational systems that ensured its availability to future generations. Cultural practices integrated agricultural activities with social and spiritual life in ways that provided meaning and motivation while strengthening community bonds. These practices included seasonal festivals, work traditions, and community cooperation systems that made agricultural life rewarding while ensuring community support during challenging times. Adaptive strategies allowed communities to respond effectively to changing conditions while preserving essential knowledge and maintaining agricultural productivity. These strategies included flexible planning approaches, diversified production systems, and community support networks that provided resilience during difficult periods. Knowledge preservation systems ensured that valuable agricultural wisdom was transmitted between generations while remaining accessible to community members. These systems included oral tradition, practical demonstration, community memory, and informal education that made essential knowledge widely available while preserving its accuracy and relevance. The agricultural year in medieval communities flowed like a carefully orchestrated symphony, with each season contributing its unique themes and rhythms to the overall harmony of community life. Spring activities focused on preparation and new beginnings as communities emerged from winter with energy and optimism for the coming year. Soil preparation, planting, and animal care created busy but hopeful work that connected families to the promise of new growth and eventual harvest success. Summer work emphasized tending and cultivation as communities nurtured their growing crops while preparing for the intensive work of harvest season. This period required vigilance and consistent care while providing opportunities to observe crop development and make adjustments that would optimize final results. Autumn brought the culmination of the year's efforts as communities focused their energy on harvesting and preserving the fruits of their labor. This season combined intensive work with celebration as families gathered their crops while preparing for winter months. Winter provided opportunities for rest, reflection, and preparation as communities used indoor time for tool maintenance, skill development, and planning activities that prepared them for the next agricultural cycle. This season balanced rest with productive activities while strengthening family and community relationships. The seamless transitions between seasons created natural rhythms that supported both agricultural productivity and human well-being. These rhythms provided structure and meaning while ensuring that all necessary activities received appropriate attention throughout the year. Medieval farming communities built resilience through systems of mutual support, shared resources, and collective problem-solving that enabled them to thrive despite challenges and uncertainties. Social networks within communities created support systems that activated automatically during times of crisis or unusual need. These networks ensured that no family faced challenges alone, while distributing resources and assistance efficiently throughout the community. Resource-sharing systems allowed communities to make optimal use of available materials and equipment while reducing individual ownership costs and risks. These systems included shared tools, communal facilities, and cooperative work arrangements that improved overall community efficiency. Collective decision-making processes ensured that community choices reflected diverse perspectives while building consensus around important issues. These processes created community ownership of decisions, while ensuring that different interests and needs were considered in community planning. Emergency response capabilities allowed communities to respond effectively to crises through coordinated action and resource mobilization. These capabilities included disaster response systems, mutual aid networks, and recovery planning that helped communities survive and recover from various challenges. Cultural continuity systems preserved essential knowledge and values while adapting to changing conditions and circumstances. These systems ensured that important wisdom was maintained while allowing communities to evolve and improve their practices over time. Medieval agricultural life embodied profound understanding of natural cycles that connected human activities to the larger patterns of growth, harvest, rest, and renewal that govern all life on Earth. The agricultural calendar reflected deep appreciation for the natural rhythms that govern plant growth, animal behavior, and seasonal changes. This understanding helped communities align their activities with natural processes, while creating sustainable systems that supported both current needs and long-term prosperity. Regenerative practices maintained soil health and agricultural productivity through techniques that worked with natural processes rather than against them. These practices included crop rotation, organic fertilization, and sustainable resource use that preserved agricultural capability for future generations. Community traditions connected agricultural activities to cultural and spiritual meanings that provided purpose and motivation while strengthening social bonds. These traditions helped communities understand their work as part of larger patterns of meaning while creating positive associations with agricultural life. Intergenerational knowledge transfer ensured that agricultural wisdom was preserved and transmitted while adapting to changing conditions and discoveries. This knowledge transfer created continuity while allowing for innovation and improvement in agricultural practices. The integration of work and celebration created life patterns that balanced productivity with enjoyment, while building positive community relationships. This integration made agricultural life rewarding, while ensuring that essential work was completed effectively and sustainably. As our journey through medieval harvest season draws to a peaceful close, we can marvel at the profound wisdom and resilience of these remarkable communities who transformed seasonal challenges into opportunities for cooperation, innovation, and celebration. Medieval woodcut showing farmers plowing with oxen and a wooden plow during traditional agriculture. The medieval farmers we have walked beside tonight demonstrated that survival was not merely about enduring hardship, but about creating systems of mutual support and shared wisdom that allowed entire communities to thrive. Their sophisticated understanding of weather patterns, soil management, food preservation, and community cooperation created sustainable ways of life that supported families and villages for generations. These agricultural communities showed us that the most powerful survival tools were not weapons or defenses against a hostile world, but rather the gentle technologies of cooperation, knowledge sharing, and mutual aid that transformed individual struggles into collective success. When harvest time arrived, no family worked alone. Instead, entire villages became extended families united in the common purpose of gathering and preserving the year's bounty. The rhythms they followed connected human life intimately with natural cycles, creating patterns of work and rest that supported both productivity and well-being. Their celebrations marked not just the completion of tasks, but the renewal of community bonds and the continuation of cultural traditions that gave meaning to their shared labors. Their innovations in food preservation, storage, and processing created security systems that protected communities through winter months while maintaining nutritional diversity and culinary satisfaction. Their understanding of herbal medicine, seasonal timing, and resource management demonstrated sophisticated knowledge that we are only beginning to appreciate fully in our modern world. Most importantly, these medieval farmers showed us that resilience comes not from individual strength alone, but from the networks of relationship and mutual support that communities create together. When storms threatened the harvest, when illness struck families, or when unexpected challenges arose, the response was not panic or despair, but rather the quiet activation of support systems that had been built through years of reciprocal care and shared responsibility. Their tools were simple but effective, maintained with the care that comes from understanding their true value. Their techniques were refined through generations of careful observation and practical experience. Their communities were bound together by traditions that honored both individual contributions and collective achievement. As you drift into peaceful sleep tonight, remember these quiet heroes who shaped our world through their patient wisdom and generous cooperation. Let their example remind us that survival is not about conquering challenges through force, but about meeting them with intelligence, preparation, and the strength that comes from communities united in common purpose. May their gentle resilience inspire our own approaches to the seasons of challenge and abundance in our modern lives. Like the medieval farmers who watched the sky for weather signs and prepared for winter during summer's abundance, we too can learn to read the signs of our times and prepare for the future through cooperation, wisdom, and mutual care. Sleep peacefully, knowing that the same human capacity for adaptation, innovation, and community that sustained medieval farming families through countless harvest seasons continues to live within us all. Their legacy reminds us that even in the face of uncertainty, human beings possess remarkable abilities to create security, meaning, and joy through working together with patience, skill, and abiding care for one another. Rest now in the warm knowledge that throughout history, ordinary people have found extraordinary ways not merely to survive, but to create lives of purpose, connection, and quiet triumph through the gentle but powerful arts of cooperation and shared wisdom.